Excitement filled the air as Emily adjusted her earrings, her reflection staring back from the mirror. Tonight was the annual neighborhood dinner party, a night for reconnecting and reveling with friends.
I want everything to be perfect.
This party was important for his social standing, for their image as a couple. Emily took a deep breath, smoothing down her dress. It was going to be a lovely evening.
The neighbors appreciate good wine.
David straightened his tie, admiring the label on the Merlot he had selected. He knew their neighbors appreciated good wine. It was a small detail, but to David, details mattered. He wanted Emily to be proud of him, to see him as a successful and charming man. Hearing her heels descending the staircase, he turned, a warm smile spreading across his face. Tonight was going to be a good night. As they drove to the party, a comfortable silence settled between them. Years of marriage had fostered a deep understanding, a shared language spoken in glances and gestures. Emily rested her hand on David's, a silent acknowledgement of their companionship. He squeezed her hand gently, his eyes briefly leaving the road to meet hers. Yes, tonight was going to be perfect. The house was abuzz with conversation and laughter upon their arrival. Familiar faces beamed at them, pulling them into warm embraces and lively discussions. David poured a glass of wine for Emily, their fingers brushing lightly. She smiled her thanks, her eyes sparkling with genuine joy. Surrounded by their friends, bathed in the warm glow of the evening, they were the picture of a happy couple. The aroma of roasted chicken and rosemary filled the air, mingling with the sweet scent of lilies carefully placed on the dining table. Laughter echoed around them as neighbors shared stories, their voices creating a comforting symphony of community.
And then our dog just ran off with it.
David, ever the charmer, had the table in stitches with a witty anecdote about their dog, eliciting a playful eye roll from Emily. She loved his humor, the way he could effortlessly lighten the mood. As the laughter subsided, the conversation shifted to recent career successes.
I've been working on this community centre, designed to be a vibrant hub for the neighbourhood.
Emily, a talented architect, spoke passionately about her latest project. David listened intently, pride swelling in his chest. He had always admired her dedication and talent. She was a force to be reckoned with, and he was lucky to have her by his side.
Architects, always with their heads in the clouds, right?
However, as Emily finished speaking, a hush fell over the table. David, in a misguided attempt to contribute to the conversation, made a light-hearted remark about architects, their heads always stuck in the clouds. He hadn't meant anything by it, merely a playful jab at his wife's profession, but as the words left his mouth, he saw Emily's face stiffen, her smile fading, a knot of unease twisted in his gut. He had misjudged the situation, and a wave of guilt washed over him. Emily's cheeks burned with a mixture of anger and humiliation. David's words, though seemingly innocuous, struck a nerve. It was a subtle undermining of her achievements, a dismissal of her hard work. And to make matters worse, he had said it in front of their friends, their neighbors, the people whose opinions mattered to him most. The laughter died in her throat, replaced by a bitter taste of resentment. The evening, once so promising, was now irrevocably tainted.
What's that supposed to mean, David?
Emily's voice, though quiet, cut through the sudden silence like a shard of glass. Her eyes, usually sparkling with warmth, now glinted with icy anger. The guests, sensing the shift in atmosphere, exchanged uneasy glances, their jovial conversations fading to awkward whispers.
Oh, come on, Em. You know I didn't mean anything by it.
David felt a cold dread creep up his spine. He had made a terrible mistake. He stammered, his face flushing crimson. He reached for her hand, but she pulled away as if his touch burned. His stomach churned with a potent cocktail of shame and panic. He hated it when they argued, especially in public. He just wanted to fix it to make her smile again.
Don't em me. You always do this, belittling my work, making me feel small.
Her words, like poisoned darts, found their mark, piercing through David's attempts to apologize. He opened his mouth to speak, to defend himself, but she cut him off.
Just forget it, David. I'm tired of this.
She pushed back her chair, the screech of metal against tile echoing through the stunned silence. David sat there, paralyzed, as Emily stormed out of the house, leaving him to face the judging eyes of their friends and neighbors. He felt a wave of self-loathing crash over him. How could he have been so stupid? He loved Emily. He was proud of her accomplishments, but somehow His insecurities had manifested in the worst way possible. He had hurt her, publicly humiliated her, and now he was drowning in the consequences of his own foolish words.
Emily, wait!
David's desperate plea chased after his wife's retreating figure. He pushed past the stunned guests, ignoring the whispers and gasps that followed him like shadows. He had to reach her, to explain, to apologize. But Emily, fueled by fury and years of simmering resentment, didn't slow down. She marched towards their car, her anger propelling her forward. David caught up to her just as she was about to get in the car. He grabbed her arm, his touch gentle but firm.
Please, let's just talk about this. I messed up, I know, but I can explain.
His words were met with a cold, hard stare. Emily's eyes, usually brimming with love and warmth, were now glacial, reflecting the depth of her pain and anger.
Explain what, David? That you don't respect me? That you think I'm just some silly dreamer with her head in the clouds?
Her voice, though hushed, dripped with contempt.
I'm tired of it, David. Tired of your backhanded compliments. Tired of feeling like I'm not good enough.
Her words hit him like a physical blow, knocking the air out of his lungs.
I don't think you're not good enough, Emily. I love you, I admire you, but you're always so successful. I feel like I can't keep up.
The words tumbled out of him, a confession of his deepest insecurities. Emily stared at him, her anger momentarily giving way to a chilling, hollow disappointment.
I want a divorce, David.
She said, her voice flat, devoid of the love that had once fueled their every interaction. The words hung in the air between them, heavy with finality. The sterile environment of the lawyer's office magnified the coldness that had settled between them. Gone was the playful banter, the shared dreams whispered late at night. Now only the harsh reality of their shattered marriage remained, dissected and analyzed in legal terms.
Sighs. The tears, it seems, have dried up, leaving behind a desolate emptiness.
Emily sat across from him, her face pale, her eyes red-rimmed but dry. David signed the papers, his hand trembling slightly. Each stroke of the pen felt like a nail hammered into the coffin of their love, sealing the fate of their once happy family.
I glanced at Emily, hoping to catch a flicker of emotion, a hint of the woman I had fallen in love with. But her face was an impassive mask, her gaze fixed on some distant point beyond the wall. The weight of our separation pressed down on me, suffocating me with its finality.
Life after the divorce was a blur of empty rooms and hollow silences. The house, once filled with Emily's vibrant energy and the echoes of their children's laughter, felt unbearably large and lonely. He wandered through the rooms like a ghost, haunted by memories of happier times.
The scent of her perfume lingered in the air, a cruel reminder of what I had lost.
Emily threw herself into her work, finding solace in the precise lines and angles of her architectural designs. The pain was a constant ache, a dull roar in her ears, but she refused to let it consume her. She focused on her career, her friends, pouring all her energy into rebuilding a life without David.
I told myself I was better off, stronger, independent. But late at night, when the city lights painted my empty apartment in a cold, artificial glow, a wave of loneliness washed over me, threatening to drown me in its depths.
Their three sons, caught in the crossfire of their parents' shattered love, retreated into themselves, their youthful exuberance replaced by a heartbreaking sadness. Ethan, the eldest, once a boisterous and outgoing child, now sought solace in the pages of fantasy novels, escaping into worlds where families remained whole.
His grades slipped, his laughter faded, replaced by a brooding silence that worried his teachers and broke my heart.
The usually energetic middle child, Ryan, once the heart and soul of the family with his infectious laughter and playful antics, now moved with a weariness that belied his tender years. His once bright eyes, reflecting the innocence of childhood, now held a dullness that mirrored the somber atmosphere that had permeated their lives.
He clung to his mother, seeking comfort in her embrace, but even her love couldn't fully erase the pain of his broken family.
Little Leo, the youngest, was too young to fully comprehend the complexities of his parents' separation, but he felt the absence of his father acutely. He would wander around the house, clutching his favorite toy truck, calling out for his dad, his small voice echoing with a heartbreaking longing that tore at Emily's heart.
Bedtime stories, once a cherished ritual filled with warmth and laughter, were now met with silent tears as Leo struggled to understand why I was no longer there to tuck him in.
David tried his best to be a good father, to bridge the chasm that now separated him from his sons. He would take them to the park on weekends, trying to recapture the joy and laughter they had once shared so effortlessly.
But the shadow of our broken marriage loomed large, casting a pall over our interactions. Their forced smiles and hesitant hugs were a constant reminder of the love that had been lost, a painful echo of the happy family we once were.
Section 7. Lost in a Sea of Sorrow. David felt like a ship lost at sea, tossed about by waves of guilt, regret, and loneliness. He had always defined himself as a husband, a father, the anchor of his family. Now, stripped of those roles, he felt adrift, unsure of his purpose.
He threw himself into his work, hoping to numb the pain with endless hours and demanding projects. But the silence of his empty apartment at night was a constant, agonizing reminder of his failure. Sleep offered no escape. His nights plagued by dreams of Emily's radiant smile, the warmth of her touch, the echoes of their children's laughter. He would wake up in a cold sweat, his heart pounding, reaching out for her across the vast emptiness of his bed, only to be met by the cold reality of her absence. The pain was a physical ache, a leaden weight in his chest that made it difficult to breathe.
He tried dating, hoping to fill the void, to recapture the feeling of connection he so desperately craved. But every woman he met paled in comparison to Emily. Their laughter grated on his nerves, their touch felt alien, their stories held no interest for him. He was a ghost haunting the land of the living, unable to move on, forever tethered to the memory of his lost love.
His friends, concerned by his withdrawn demeanor and haunted eyes, tried to pull him out of his self-imposed isolation, inviting him to dinners, movies, anything to distract him from his grief. But their well-meaning attempts at cheer felt hollow, their jokes falling flat. Their company a poor substitute for the family he yearned for. He was trapped in a prison of his own making, the bars forged from his guilt and regret.
Section 8. Christmas Without Her. The holiday season, once a time of joy and anticipation, now amplified David's sense of loss. The twinkling lights, the festive decorations, the carols playing endlessly on the radio, all served as cruel reminders of the happy family life he had taken for granted.
The boys were coming to spend Christmas with him, but the thought of their forced smiles and subdued excitement filled him with dread instead of anticipation. He stood in the doorway of the living room, watching as his sons unwrapped their presents. Their laughter felt strained, their joy tinged with a sadness that mirrored his own. He had bought them everything on their lists, hoping to compensate for their broken family with material possessions. But no amount of gifts could fill the empty space at the table, the void left by Emily's absence.
Christmas dinner was a somber affair. The roast turkey, once Emily's specialty, tasted bland, the festive crackers remained unopened, and the forced conversation revolved around safe, superficial topics. His sons, sensing his despair, tried their best to be cheerful, but their young hearts were heavy with the weight of their fractured family.
As he tucked them into bed that night, each goodnight kiss felt like a goodbye. He saw the reflection of his own sadness in their eyes, the silent question of, when will things be normal again, hanging heavy in the air. He had no answers for them, only empty platitudes and hollow promises of a better future. He turned away from their sleeping faces, his own tears a silent testament to the crushing weight of his grief.
Section 9. A Melody of Hope. One day, while flipping through old photo albums, a picture of Emily caught his eye. It was taken on their honeymoon, her face radiant with love, her eyes sparkling with the promise of their shared future. A surge of longing so potent it took his breath away washed over him. He had made a mistake, a colossal one. But he was determined to win her back, to rebuild what they had lost. An idea began to form in his mind, a seed of hope taking root in the barren wasteland of his despair.
David had always dabbled in songwriting, a private passion he had never shared with anyone. He picked up his guitar, the wood warm and familiar beneath his fingertips. The melody came to him first, a bittersweet tune that mirrored the roller coaster of emotions he had experienced since their separation.
The words poured out of him, raw and honest, a confession of his love, his regret, his desperate hope for a second chance. He sang of their first meeting, the spark that had ignited their love, the dreams they had woven together. He sang of his mistakes, his insecurities, the pain he had caused her, And finally, he sang of his unwavering love, his hope for forgiveness, his belief that their story wasn't over yet.
He poured his heart and soul into that song, each note infused with the depth of his love for Emily. He practiced tirelessly, his voice growing stronger with each rehearsal, the melody flowing smoother until it became an anthem of his love, his plea for redemption. He knew it was a long shot, but it was the only shot he had. He had to try.
Section 10. The Song of Love's Return. Emily stood at the door of her apartment, a bouquet of lilies, her favourite, clutched in her hand. It was her birthday, a day that only served to emphasize her loneliness since the divorce. She had agreed to let David take the boys for the afternoon, needing some time to herself, to wallow in her melancholy. A knock on the door startled her. She wasn't expecting anyone. Cautiously, she opened the door, her heart skipping a beat as she saw David standing there, a nervous smile on his face.
"Can I come in?" he asked, his voice raspy with emotion.
She hesitated for a moment, her heart a war between apprehension and a flicker of hope she didn't dare acknowledge. He looked different somehow, his eyes no longer haunted by despair, but shimmering with a newfound determination. Reluctantly, she stepped aside, allowing him to enter.
He stood in the middle of her living room, his guitar case in hand, his gaze searching hers. I wrote something for you," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. He opened the guitar case, revealing the instrument that had once been his solace during their courtship. He took a deep breath, his fingers finding the familiar chords.
As the first notes of the song filled the room, Emily felt a lump form in her throat. The melody, bittersweet and poignant, resonated deep within her soul, stirring memories she thought were buried forever. David's voice, raw with emotion, wove a tale of love, loss and redemption. He sang of their shared history, their dreams, their heartbreak. His voice cracking with the effort of keeping his emotions in check. He sang of second chances, of forgiveness, of the enduring power of love.
And as the last notes faded, he looked at her. His eyes filled with a love so pure, so raw, it brought tears to her eyes. In that moment, all the anger, the hurt, the resentment she had harbored for so long melted away, replaced by a wave of longing, a yearning for the love they had lost. She saw the man she had fallen in love with all those years ago, his heart laid bare, his soul poured out in every note he had sung, and she knew with a certainty that defied logic that their story wasn't over yet.
David stood in the park, the place where they first met. The sun was setting, casting a golden hue over everything. Emily walked towards him, her heart pounding. The memories of their past, both joyous and painful, flashed through her mind with every step she took. David took a deep breath, his eyes never leaving hers. He got down on one knee, the same way he did all those years ago when he first asked for her hand in marriage. This time, however, the weight of their shared history made the moment even more poignant.
"Emily,
He began, his voice filled with a mixture of hope and vulnerability.
will you marry me again?"
Tears welled up in her eyes, her emotions a whirlwind of love, forgiveness, and renewed hope. She nodded, her voice strong despite the tears.
Yes, David, 1,000 times yes.
They embraced, holding each other tightly as if afraid to ever let go again. The sun dipped below the horizon, but in their hearts a new dawn was breaking. They knew this was a new beginning for them, a chance to rebuild their love stronger than ever before. As they stood there, wrapped in each other's arms, the park around them seemed to come alive with the promise of tomorrow, a promise they were now ready to face together. Pause. 3S. Section 11. A new beginning.